Hey everyone, I want to start this video by thanking you for subscribing and commenting on my videos. Reviewing games has been a learning experience for me, and thank you for the feedback on what has been working well and what I need to improve on. This video is a review of Robocop Rogue City, developed by Teon and released on November of 2023. I played it on the Xbox Series X, but it's also available on PC and the PlayStation 5. Let's start with the too long didn't watch. Robocop Rogue City is one of the most faithful adaptations of Robocop you will find. It's like they took the movie and just immersed you into it. The art design and the story is exactly what you would expect from Robocop, and if you're a fan of the movies, you will find so much to love with this game. Is it perfect? No, but that's okay. Sometimes you just want to be an unstoppable cyborg policeman gunning down hordes of bad guys. However, there are some big problems on the technical side of Rogue City, with a lot of bugs, glitches, and AI problems, but they don't detract too much from the experience. Overall, it's a solid 7 out of 10 game that will run you about 15 enjoyable hours and doesn't overstay its welcome.
Guys, we've got company. Anyone expecting a silver freak?
Drop it, scum.
Let's delve a little deeper into the technical side of Rogue City. Like I said, I played it on the Xbox Series X and it has some problems. I encountered a lot of glitches such as characters T-posing in the distance, sliding across the ground, or disappearing through walls or objects after I threw them. Missions would glitch, requiring me to restart them or reload them from the checkpoint to progress, and the AI also leaves a lot to be desired. They often just stand and shoot at you without trying to find any cover at all. They also have a lot of pathfinding issues sometimes. Depending on where they are, they may become stuck on an object very easily, or they'll simply run at you mindlessly as you just mow them all down. But it's the frame rate that I had the most issues with. Like most console games, Rogue City has a quality and a performance mode. Ideally, the quality mode would prioritize the visuals, while performance mode would keep a high, consistent frame rate. It's too bad that neither of these modes are great. I haven't experienced many games with such a gap between performance and quality modes. Performance mode does attempt to keep the high frame rate at the cost of severely reducing the resolution when you're fighting a lot of enemies. When there's bullets flying and the screen is filled with particle effects and fires and explosions, the resolution takes such a hit that you can feel like you're playing the original Doom. I'm not exaggerating. What you're seeing on screen right now are some of the examples of how bad this game gets at times. The ED 209 turns into a blurry mess, sparks from your gun as you fire become large pixels, and the entire screen feels like they smeared Vaseline on the lens. Quality mode doesn't suffer from those problems, but it does tank your FPS severely, to the point it may be unplayable for a lot of people. It's a good thing that Robocop is the slow-moving robot, because if you require precise, lightning-fast reflexes in combat, there's just no way you're going to do that on quality mode. There's a definite input lag that comes from that low FPS, and you need to plan your moves in advance. I played the first half of the game on performance mode and the second on quality, and personally, I would recommend you play it on quality mode since I was still able to beat the game. Just be aware that both options really suck right now. I did encounter another problem where the FPS had nothing to do with the graphics mode. A couple times the FPS tanked so bad that it was obvious that there was some sort of problem with the game and it required a restart. I'm talking about the FPS going down to PowerPoint levels of bad. I captured footage of it, and if it happens to you, just restart your game and it should fix it. If it doesn't, you may need to restart your entire console as well. But how are the graphics? They can look really good at times. The main area of the game, the streets of Detroit, it looks really nice, whether it's during the day or night. Puddles of water reflect the world and the buildings around it. It helps that these sections don't have any combat, so the FPS stays relatively fine. But the character models just aren't anything special. Everyone is stiff and they don't move much. It isn't terrible, but it's not great either. The art design of Rogue City is incredible. It's obvious that the developers watched the Robocop films multiple times and recreated the 80s feeling of the movie. Rather than going for something more modern and shoving Robocop into like a new world, they used the world that was in their first two movies. Detroit is a hellscape filled with trash and homeless people, run down and ramshackle. The police station is on its last legs, and there's this good mix of old and new technology that's just perfect for the setting. They really nailed the aesthetics.
We'll get officer. Officer Howard, to illustrate the point. You see, Officer Howard made a drug bust that cost us a lot of money. We want to reward this dutiful officer with a performance bonus.
The audio. The first question you're going to ask is, did the actor for Robocop return for this one? And the answer is yes. Peter Weller is back in his iconic role. Just be aware that he's not a terribly great voice actor. He makes some efforts, but Peter Weller is 76 years old, and I don't want to say that he phoned it in, but I could have forgiven the developers if they had chosen someone else to do the voice. Robocop just doesn't emote much, which is an intentional choice because he is Robocop. There's definitely something missing about it at times.
You must be Scott. What did you do with the blue SUX 6000 that you stole?
And then there's everyone else in the game who is just okay. Robocop, the game, isn't going to win any awards for its voice acting. Serviceable is the best I can say about it. The iconic music does make a return, but I have to say, I noticed that much of this game is actually pretty quiet. There are a lot of sections without any music in it at all, which I found to be really odd at times. But aside from the voice acting and the music, it's the sounds of the guns that are incredible. The Auto 9 booms loud and powerful, and you will love mowing down bad guys with this weapon. There's something about 80s movies that have their gun sounds a certain way that's missing from modern day movies. They just don't sound the same. Rogue City leans more towards those 80s sound effects than the modern day, which makes it just perfect.
Welcome!
I will say that there is some adjustment issues with the sound effects. Sometimes they're too loud at times, while other times they're really quiet. Whoever did the audio mixing for Rogue City should have probably given it another pass-through before they released it.
According to our sources, the attacks were aimed at catching the attention of a man whose identity remains unknown. This dangerous new guy in town seems to have his eye on doing business in old Detroit.
All right, let's talk about the story of Robocop Rogue City without giving any spoilers. You play as Robocop, obviously. This game is set between the events of Robocop 2 and 3. Robocop is a half-man, half-robot police officer in Detroit. It's set in the 80s. Robocop was created from the remains of Alex Murphy, who was gunned down in the line of duty, and he's turned into a cyborg by OCP, which is a corporation that essentially owns the police department and most of Detroit. The big question is, do you need to watch Robocop 1 and 2 to understand the story? No, but it would help if you did. There's nods and references to the films that you won't catch if you didn't watch the movies. But you can piece together enough to get by if you didn't. But honestly, if you're playing this game, you're probably a fan of the movies, or at least saw some of them or most of them in the past. The first two Robocop movies hold up pretty well, so if you like the game, just give them a watch. The movies combine intense violence and over-the-top gore with social commentary that worked in the 80s, but have fallen out of favor in modern-day movies. They talk about classism, out-of-control capitalism, and society's love of violence and entertainment. So does Rogue City try to do the same? It's not really. It never reaches the same levels as the movies, whether that's in its violence or what its story is trying to say. It's hard to do. Just look at how the remake of Robocop never managed to recreate what made Robocop unique. The story of Rogue City is a continuation of Robocop 2. Detroit is still a mess, and the police are struggling to keep peace and enforce the law. Worse, Robocop is trying to come to terms on whether he is a machine with the mind of a human or a human stuck in the body of a machine. It's an essential part of the story, and OCP has a system to evaluate him after a series of malfunctions prevent him from doing his job. These evaluations are the game's way of awarding you points and a score for what you're trying to accomplish during a mission, and after each one is completed, you can get some skill points. A lot of the characters make a return from the films, like Robocop's partner Ann Lewis, but most of the cast are new. You have the classic evil OCP corporate goon that's only concerned about profits. You have the no-nonsense sergeant who leads the police force, and the investigative reporter that's trying to find the truth about OCP's interest in building a new city for Detroit's elite. Robocop Rogue City tells a good story that is perfect for its length. It only took me about 15 hours to complete, just long enough that when it felt like it was overstaying its welcome, the credits rolled.
Break the door!
Who's that?
Now, let's talk about the real reason most people will want to play Robocop Rogue City. It's the gameplay. Here's the structure of the game in a nutshell. You're going to start at the police station where you will explore the precinct and talk to the officers there. You'll have the option to continue the main story or do some of the game's many side quests. The station may have too many people waiting in line and you'll be asked to open another counter to help people, or an officer's locker is stuck and you need to open it. Most of these side missions are easy, slow, and may feel pointless, but they do build the world around you and they're an excuse to explore it. After the police station, you're going to travel to the streets of Old Detroit. This is a larger map, although still pretty small compared to other games, where you can either pursue the main objective marker, or you can look around for side content. Maybe there's a murder that needs investigating, or a biker gang has a chop shop that needs to be cleared out. Then there are mundane things like giving parking tickets or fines for tagging walls or public drunkenness. The side content can range from pretty good to very average. I do encourage you to do as much of it as possible, since it can be really great world building, and it's fun to just be a cop sometimes, rather than an unstoppable force of justice that just mows down everything in sight. To help you in your missions, Robocop has this ability to scan things to provide hints or clues to an investigation. He can also find evidence or collectibles in the world that gives you XP for skills. XP can be used to increase Robocop's abilities or stats, providing you with more damage or armor. It's pretty basic, but it's a great mechanic to encourage you to explore and pick up collectibles. The Auto 9, Robocop's signature weapon, makes a return, and it can even be upgraded with different abilities and functions through the use of these motherboards that you find during missions, or you can be rewarded with them afterwards. It turns into sort of a mini-game where you want to maximize your bonuses and enhancements with nodes while avoiding penalties and detriments. While it is fun, it can turn the Auto 9 into something ridiculous when you no longer need to reload and you can just fire infinitely with one trigger pull, which leads us to the combat, the most important thing in Rogue City. Robocop is a slow-moving tank, an unstoppable force of nature that lets nothing stand in his way. You're going to mow down hordes of gang members and evildoers, scumbags, and cretins. There's also other robots for you to shoot and destroy, along with the Ed 209, which is an often malfunctioning robot much larger than you. The gore is incredibly graphic. You're going to be blowing off limbs and shooting bad guys in the crotch in true 80s movie fashion. One of the enhancements to the Auto 9 even gives you more gore, so expect your vision to be obscured by clouds of red blood and body parts. But you don't just shoot people. You can also grab them and hurl them violently, or pick up objects like motorcycles or trash cans and give them a toss. It's incredibly fun, and I never got tired of the combat. Sure, after 15 hours or so, it does drag, especially when there's not much variety to the enemies or the environments. Plus, the AI isn't great at times. But by the time you start to get quote-unquote over it, the game concludes. This isn't a Call of Duty game where you're running swiftly into cover, shooting enemies and dashing while calling in air support. It's really slow. Robocop moves at a snail's pace, and you're going to be taking damage from a slew of directions and enemies while you methodically gun them down. But Robocop is a cyborg, so while you're being pummeled by bullets, they don't really do that much damage, and you can always use a repair kit to top off your health. I will say, some of the enemies are unfair because of how slowly you move. Snipers are always too far away, and your Auto 9 may have trouble with them depending on which upgrades you took. Some of the enemies are way too spongy as well, like the Ed 209, which takes minutes of continuous fire to take down. And while the booming gun noises are great at first, if you have your Auto 9 on full auto shooting for minutes at a time, it gets really old fast when you're just hearing that constant boom. Robocop's combat is best when you're fighting a wave of weaker thugs that explode in glorious, gory fashion for a couple minutes and then it ends. In conclusion to this review, Robocop Rogue City is a solid first-person shooter that will satisfy fans of the Robocop films while introducing new players to the series. While it does have its fair share of problems, it's fun enough to overcome them. I would recommend you pick this game up on sale, and if I had to rate it, I would give it a firm 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe and like the video for more content.